Hi there. Welcome to New Tracks Modeling. New Tracks is an exciting new digital opportunity to obtain mentoring to help you improve your modeling. You will meet talented modelers and manufacturers from all over the world who share their model building skills and artistic advice. Improve your modeling and increase the confidence in your modeling efforts. Share your building efforts with fellow modelers and have some fun doing it. The shows are live on Zoom and YouTube, so be sure to join in and ask your questions. Now here is New Tracks founder and your host, Jim Kello MMR.
Well, I think we seem to have lost Jim. He is living in hurricane country, so maybe the hurricane caught up. So we'll see if he joins us momentarily, rejoins us. In the interim, since he's not with us, welcome all to New Tracks Wednesday night meetup. And with that, I'd like to throw it to Father Ron Walters for our invocation this evening.
O God, as we express our creativity in creating in miniature the world around us, may we marvel at the beauty and genius which created the world and instilled in us a portion of your great knowledge and wisdom. Give success to the work of our hands, O God. Amen.
Thank you, Father Ron. So at this point, would like to ask Dylan Lambert to talk a little bit about a celebration of life that he was involved with and give us a little background. I think then we'll have a little video to run. So Dylan, I'll throw it to you.
So thanks, Phil. Some of you know who I am because of the stuff I've done with New Tracks in the past. But basically I'm here tonight to talk about a friend of mine who passed a while ago, Alan Carroll. He was an ON30 modeler. One of the first people I ever dealt with when I went to my first train show, believe it or not. Back in, God, it's like this April at this point. It's been a better part of 6 months ago. He passed away suddenly. So all of us who knew him basically decided we wanted to do something in his honor. So we sat back and decided to ask, well, where do we do? Like, do we do a donation? And the donation basically came out immediately as that's a brilliant idea. And what immediately became apparent is because of Alan's love of the main narrow gauge and the Wiscasset, Waterville, and Farmington in particular, is that we decided, well, let's do something for them. So we basically all pitched in to buy a new bench with a plaque on it in Alan's name for the new station at Trout Brook. And then everything that we raised over that, we donated to the museum. And they had something of a interesting thing to put it towards. Now, I want you all to picture in your head a GE 45 tonner, a standard gauge diesel, not a small piece of equipment. Now, enter the WWF, who decided, let's regauge this thing to make a 2-foot gauge diesel out of it because we need something that will work. And hey, this is the best idea that we got because nothing out there quite fits. So let's build it to what fits. Phil, if you want to run the video, this past weekend we were up there for the donation, and well, I was recording from the platform, the end of a caboose, which there wasn't much room at Trout Brook. It's in the middle of the woods, suffice to say, but a beautiful station nonetheless.
I hate to say it, but I thought I had the right video, but unfortunately the one I have is the one that is, it's a .mov, so we may have to come back and run it a little bit later. So let's go ahead and throw it back. I think Jim's back with us. Why don't we throw it over to Jim at this point?
So Dylan, we'll come back to you because I do think that it's important to run this video of your presentation and see the comments that Alan Littlefield made about Alan Carroll at your meeting. And I think you guys did a fantastic job with it. So as soon as we can get the video lined up, we'll come back to you. And I'm assuming we've done the prayer, right, Phil?
Yes. Yes, we
Okay.
have.
So we're at Modeling Lifestyle. We've got a great modeler coming up on our next show on October the 6th, Colonel Tom Freely. And I really think that this is something that you won't want to miss, because he has made what I think is one of the most beautiful, huge dioramas of the Battle of the Alamo that I've ever seen. And when you look at the various scenes that he has created in this model, it'll just blow you away. So if we could run the video, and I hope that you will be able to attend his modeling lifestyle.
Join the Modeling Lifestyle at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on October 6th, where we will feature the modeling lifestyle of Tom Feely, diorama builder extraordinaire. Tom is the builder of the famous Texas Liberty Forever Alamo diorama.
I love the sound of a whistle.
And I can assure you, it'll be well worth your time to see the presentation of his diorama. It's really something to see. Have you lost me again, Phil?
No, you're good. You're good.
Oh, okay. Because the screen went blank. That's why I was saying. All right. So we've got two new segments that we're starting October the 19th. And I've talked about these before, but I want to talk about them again. This is the first one, Petticoat Junction News with Kristen Kemper. And I really appreciate Kristen doing this for us. And I think that this is going to be hugely successful. I've already gotten two ladies that I found through their husbands, one of which I hope is going to do a build along on our show. And both of them are going to be on our show in future episodes. So I'm really enthused about that. And I think this is going to turn out better than I had hoped. So this is going to be starting on October the 19th. This will be the first one that Kristen does. And I hope if you're available that you'll tune in to see it. The other new one that we're starting is Let's Go to Our Local Hobby Shop. I know that many of you have said, well, we'd love to go to our local hobby shop, but we don't have one anymore. Well, that's what we're trying to get the issues out there and trying to find out the ones that are left, what they're doing, how they're doing it, and what the modelers in the world and the hobby shop owners in the world might be able to do together to get more hobby shops in our local communities. That's what this is all about. Mark Pokendorf is going to be the leader of this. Mark's working on his MMR with the NMRA. He's a manufacturer. He attends train shows all over the country, and he has a brick and mortar hobby shop called Pogie's Trains in California. So he just seemed to be the perfect person to lead this for us, and I'm really looking forward to starting this on October the 19th. As you know, we need help. I talked to our webmaster the other day, Jim Allen. Jim needs somebody, I won't call him an author, but they can write a sentence or two and help try to put into some words in a sentence or two some of the photos that he wants to have on the website and some of the comments that should be included for some of those photos. So if you think that you might be able to help him with that, please let me know. And that's just one example of many things that we need help in. Running the shows, we're fortunate right now. We just picked up a new volunteer. So we have 4 people now that are going to be able to run our shows, but they need help because it takes more than one of them to run each show and to make sure that everything is done as well as we can possibly get it done. So, we're all volunteers doing this. We all need, obviously you enjoy the show, you wouldn't be watching it. So if you can give us a little help, we sure would appreciate it because we sure do need it. The build-alongs. Build-alongs you've heard me talk about many times. I think they're very popular because they provide a crutch to modelers who may not have built anything for a long time. And this gives the modeler a way to have somebody building the same thing that he's building on the show, provide any help that he may need as he builds his model. So that I hope that you'll pay attention to them and want to participate with them. We've got some great ones coming up. On October the 26th, Hangman Creek Diorama is going to be building one of their dioramas. It's called Longboat at Lame Deer Mill. And it's a beautiful model once you see it. Jess Dozier, the owner, is given a 50% discount on the kit. And it's the first diorama that we've tried to build on the show. And we hope that some of you, or many of you, will be interested in building it along with Jess. Alan Rogers, who owns New Creations Victorian Railroad Buildings, is going to be doing his new church on our show. And I think that's just magnificent. It's a beautiful model. It's the model of St. Mary Star of the Sea Catholic Church in Ocean City, Maryland. That's the basis of the model. And it's available in both O and HO. Alan's offering a 25% discount off of the model. And that one is going to be starting on November the 16th. Then Dewanyan Lighting Without Wires. This is something really kind of different for us. He's offering one of his starter kits, any one of them that he offers, for a 20% discount. And I talked to Michael Groves last night for a fairly long time. And Michael really is looking forward to this. What he's planning to do is his first segment is going to be lighting a building using one of his starter sets, and show you all of the things that he goes through to prepare the building and make sure that it's set up properly and that the LEDs are the proper ones to use and so forth. And then he's going to, in future segments, he'll maybe have candles on a table, or he may have a spotlight on a sign, or he may do other things with the starter sets to show you what all of the capabilities are of his lighting system. So I think that may be really unique to follow along and to build along with him. You can pick your own model. We're not asking you to buy a model. He's giving you a discount off of his beginning sets of 20% off of whichever one that you want. And this is going to start on November the 23rd. So like I say, this is a little bit different for us, but I think for a lot of people that are interested in lighting creatively and doing different things besides just putting a light on the inside of a building, I think this may be very interesting and something that you may want to participate with. Our My Build that Chris Course does for us. Our next one is coming up October the 19th. Greg Cassidy was kind enough to fill in for Chris for the one in September. And I'm glad that he did a beautiful job. But I'm glad that Chris is going to be back with us for the one in October. The sponsor that we have for this is Dan and Amy Darty, who own both of the magazines that I write for, both O-Scale Resource and S-Scale Resource. Both of them are online publications, and both of them are free to readers. So if you're interested in the kind of articles that they have, you can subscribe to the magazines for free. And the beautiful part about it is, and why this is a perfect match in my mind, the reason for the magazines is to get more modelers building models and to bring modeling back into the hobby of model railroading. So the articles that you'll read because scales are not scale specific normally. And whether it's S scale or O scale, it makes no difference. If you're a modeler in N scale or HO, you're probably going to use exactly the same techniques, the same tools. You're going to run into the same kind of problems. So you'd be amazed at the transferability of the kind of information that you can find in his magazines to whatever scale you're modeling. So before I introduce Chris and have him talk about our my build on the show, I want to run our sponsor's short video.
Welcome to the world of scale, O and S railroading. We are your resource for all O and S scale modeling. Both our magazines are advertiser supported and free to read online, download as a PDF, or even print. All advertisers are hot linked to their website, so if you see something you like, just click. Please check out our websites for the current issues. All back issues available free for the O-Scale Resource and the S-Scale Resource magazines. And, if you are a manufacturer, distributor, or retail establishment, please contact us through our website for advertising opportunities.
Phil, do we have the video for Dylan yet?
Not yet. Give it. Why don't we go ahead and start, and we'll catch it after the first segment.
I got an email not too long ago, and I've encouraged this modeler to come on our show and talk about what his needs are himself. He sent me an email earlier tonight saying that he'd come on the show tonight, and I sent him the login link. I don't know whether he's here yet or not, but I'm going to go ahead and make this announcement, and we'll kind of go from there and see how this goes. His name is Dominic LaRosa. And here's what he wrote me. I'm assembling an O-gauge layout. I am looking for a person who lives in the Staten Island area. I am visually impaired and would like some assistance with wiring issues and other things, train related, that are hard for my eyesight. I know this is a very strange request. I can tell you that these things are very hard for me to work with. If anybody would be in the area and would like to help me, I'd be happy to compensate them for their time and effort. I think this might be the only time you might see this type of request. It would be great to make friends with someone who shares my passion and would be willing to help me out. Thank you in advance. So if you live in the Staten Island area or close by, and you could help Dominic LaRosa in wiring his layout and so forth, and he's building an O-gauge layout, then if you'll send me an email, I have Dominic's email address, and I'll pass it along to him, and then maybe you can get together and help him. Dominic, if you're on the show, if you'd like to make some comments right now, you're most welcome to do so. I guess he just could not make it tonight. But I hope that somebody might be able to help Dominic because a lot of us have eye problems, and I can totally understand what he's talking about, and him being willing to pay for your time and effort. I think that kind of gives an indication of how serious he is and how much help he really needs. So with that said, I hope someone can get in contact with Dominic. Well, now I want to turn to Gary Shurgold for his bits and pieces. Gary, welcome.
How are you, Jim?
I'm doing well.
Good. Okay.
Except for the storm.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, can we see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, welcome to Potential Railroad Components in Everyday Objects. And we're talking, of course, about bits and pieces. And tonight we're going to talk about pinking shears. Now it's very interesting. Pinking shears come in a variety of shapes. And what these are basically scissors that cut different shapes. And we can use these shapes on our roofing. Now this one here cuts little squares. And what I've done here is you can see some cardboard squares with the blue and some wooden squares. Now these can be used, this be very time consuming, as shingles on a building. And then we have this type, which is an actual wave. There's no sharp points on it. And that makes a very interesting roof shingle, as you can see from this. This would probably be like a roof shale that would go on a roof. And then we have this kind here, which is kind of unusual. And it's an unusual shingle for a roof also. Then we go to this one. Now, this is very interesting also. This is done, I cut some small pieces of veneer and of course put this together just to give you an idea of what that type of shingle is. Now, I'm very, this is the one I use, which is the diamond. And you can see here, these are the shears I have. Also have a longer set. And what I do is I use these on my building. I've never used the others, but I probably will in the future. Now, what I do is I take file folders, which is represented here, and I make lines in it. And these are approximately maybe 5/8 inch. It's actually the width of a scale ruler that I use, HO scale ruler. And I do that right across the whole sheet. I then cut them out. And then using the pinking shears, I go right down the middle and I cut every one of them. And I end up with these items over here. And after cutting a cardstock or your file folder, you end up with quite a few of these. And then what I've done is I scratch built a engine house. And prior to that, this is how I install them. When you put these on, you must mate the diamond to the hole that is in here. So the diamonds all the way around, you keep fitting them around and keep fitting them over and over again till you get your area filled in. Now, this is the roof that I had done on my engine house. It is quite large. It was very time consuming, but as you can see, extremely worthwhile. There's the upper vent roof removed, just showing you the roof, the material put on, and then of course painted. And it sits on top of my engine house, which you can see sitting here. And that is bits and pieces for tonight, Jim.
Well, Gary, I sure do appreciate it. By the way, I do want to make an announcement for Gary tonight. And then he'll be, we're going to get him an email that we can post on our site. Because Gary says he may need some help here coming up with bits and pieces. He's been doing them on our show now for several months. And so, you know, if any of you out there have an idea like his bits and pieces, please contact Gary and tell him about it and share them with us. I mean, there's no reason why Gary has to be the only one out there coming up with these great ideas. And this segment is really starting to become popular and getting an awful lot of views when we break it out of our total show each week. So I hate for it to end, but I understand that Gary, you know, may need a break here and there to come up with some other ideas. So if some others of you out there would like to participate in this bits and piece segment, please contact Gary and he'll get you involved in this and get your your ideas on the air. So with that said, I want to turn now to Phil Edholm.
Actually, Jim, before you do that, why don't you jump back to Dylan? We're all ready.
Okay, then let me go back and have Dylan come back on the screen. And Dylan, Alan Carroll, I know, was a real personal friend of yours, and for a lot of other modelers. I never had the honor of meeting him, but I do think that honoring people with his talent that are no longer with us is extremely important for the future of our hobby, and for people to know the people that really have built the hobby up to this point. So I'll turn it over to you, Dylan.
So thanks, Jim. So one of the things when it came to Alan, this is something that actually struck me when a number of us went up to his funeral, to see the line out the door, for one, astounded me. And it was more than just the trains. We think of trains as, that's what we do because that's what we all enjoy. Alan was more than that. He ran in the Boston Marathon. He was an accomplished architect. He was brilliant. And it showed. I think one of the best things that I've ever seen him ever build. And this is when I first met Al, because at the time Al was I think he actually still has the engine. Alan decided, I want to make a 210-4 Forney, which he did. He basically took a Texas mechanism and slapped it under a Forney. Or it might have been a decapod. I can't remember. It was a 10-wheeler mechanism that he threw under it. And then, of course, he also wasn't opposed to doing other odd things. He really liked working with Bachmann's 130 Forneys a lot. And he figured out how to cut them down to make tank engines and whatnot. He helped figure that out. But then one of them he converted into a single driver inspection engine that when you first look at it, you think it's normal. And then once you look at it closely, it's like, hey, wait a minute, it's missing a driver. He was truly a craftsman, and to say he was brilliant probably sells it short. He could look at something, know how to make it look right, and just did it. And he had the audacity. It didn't matter if it was a $500 piece of brass or something he was building from scratch. If he was going to make it, nothing was going to get in his way, and he was going to make it. So, Phil, if you want, let's run Alan's speech.
Gathered here today to dedicate this bench to our friend Alan Carroll. Alan was a fan of the main two-footers. He loved them. He loved the Wisconsin here. He was a life member, and he recently untimely passed. Anyway, we got together. He was a member of a group of ON30 modelers, and we got together and said we got to do something. So 26 of us donated enough to make the bench, and to give a nice donation also. And this is Dave Bukowski. He's the president of the railroad here.
Nice to meet you all. Thank you for coming.
So I'm going to officially turn over a nice check for $885.
And in honor of Alan, we are going to use this check to kit bash that large locomotive. when Alan and I spoke about this, I said, he's a kit basher. I said, we have the ultimate project. We have bought a standard gauge locomotive that we're going to re-gauge and run on these rails here. And this is the perfect starter to get us going. And I think it's just a wonderful honor for Alan's memory to do that, and to have this bench here in his memory, so that when all his family and friends come, they can see this and remember Alan. Not that you'll have any trouble remembering that. But this will be a tangible, physical remembrance of him.
And this is a little memorial picture.
Oh, perfect. This will eventually hang in here once we finish the inside.
We were together at that show. And let's see, I want to also thank here Rick and Debbie Bell, who put the financing together to buy the bench. And to Elliot Thomas here, this tall fella here, who assembled this bench for us and got it up here. Also my wife Pat for doing this. And Mr. President, and Edholm, where is
Edholm, he is train master. He's your train master
Yeah,
today.
he's the train
He's the
master.
person that checked you in.
And he put this all together for
He
us.
has a chain holding him at the station.
So thank you all for coming.
And thank you for all who donated. This is a wonderful, wonderful way to remember Alan.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's official now, you got it.
It's official, it's in my hands.
Right.
But I'm gonna carry this back with me to make sure that,
Do you want to put them in here?
yeah, that's good.
I made a cheat sheet, but I didn't need it.
You always need a cheat sheet.
Well, it's a little different than I planned, but it worked out.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And
Shall
you
I
picked a
in
beautiful
Jack?
day to come here.
Yes, we did after yesterday.
And let me see if I,
So that was basically the speech we gave. I think we were there for another 5 minutes or so while Alan's wife came up, his grandkids, his kids, they came up to join us, which I think was important, because we forget that it's not just a modeler, he's a human being, and he had a huge impact on his kids and his grandkids. I don't know them nearly as well as I knew Alan, but everything I've seen of them, they are truly wonderful people, and we're all the less for having lost them. And now, with that said, they are putting the donation that we gave them to good use. Now, the bench at Trout Brook is going to get used as Trout Brook is finished, and the locomotive that they're literally kit bashing is something that Alan would have absolutely have done. I can guarantee you the moment he heard that, he would go, I'm building one and I'm going to figure out how to build it. And he would have done it. Now, Phil, do you have the picture of the locomotive that I sent you?
I did not get it, but I will look
Okay.
for it while you talk.
So, and again, I want to paint this picture for you guys, and that's kind of why we went to the WWNF, because, well, one, Alan was a lifetime member there, and two, it's a museum that literally defines building something from nothing. What is the
WWNF?
So the Wiscasset, Waterville, and Farmington, the WWNF, as it currently exists, was founded in the mid to late 90s. And basically at that point, the WWNF was one of the main two-footers. It was one of the larger three, the other one being the Bridgeton and Saco River, and the other one being the Sandy River. The WWNF was one of those three, and basically they struggled a lot at the end. Eventually, like with all the main narrow gauges, they were wiped out. The WWNF, basically, when they showed up in the 90s and they started trying to restore and rebuild something to preserve the history. And of course, part of it was one of their locomotives survived. It went down to a farm in Connecticut for a long time, and it came back around the time the museum first got going, which the engine runs now. Now, this here is the locomotive that the museum bought to regauge. Please take note, this is a standard gauge 45-tonner. Your shoulder height's probably about where the deck is. This is not a small locomotive. If anything, this thing, as it presently sits, dwarfs everything on the property. There's even some locomotives visiting from main narrow gauge. The two Bridgeton and Saco engines are presently there. This thing dwarfs these, and those are large as far as preserved 2-foot gauge equipment goes. Part of it is they decided, well, there's nothing out there that really fits, so we're going to make something that fits for us using the 45-tonner as a starting point. It's going to get a lot narrower. It's going to be losing weight, but more or less, it's going to be a 2-foot gauge GE center cab running up in Maine that will basically do everything they ever need. But yeah, that's the type of thing Alan would have done. He would have looked at that, said, I'm going to do that, and he would have done it. And that there is why the WWNF, the Wisconsin Museum, was right off the bat was basically a no-brainer. When you look at how they started from literally nothing, a lot full of trees, and now you look at it now where they have a shop, they're building a roundhouse, they have a turntable, a car barn, and nearly 4 miles of track on the original, I think, nearly 40-mile main line. Because, yeah, these main 2-footers did go, these larger ones went for quite a ways. It is a definition of that builder's spirit. And they will absolutely do amazing work, and they're going to continue to do it. And a lot of us were more than happy to do this in Alan's honor because he was worth it.
Dylan, I really appreciate you being here tonight. I talked to Alan Littlefield earlier yesterday, and he would have liked to have been here tonight, but he just didn't. He just couldn't do it. He's really broken up about the loss of Alan, and I know he'd like to be here, but he just couldn't make it tonight. So I want to thank you again for taking the time to do this, Dylan.
You're welcome.
Hey, Jim, before you jump to the next step, I think Dawn LaRosa is the person you were talking about earlier, is actually on the video. So
hello. Oh, that's great. Dominic, welcome.
Dominic is, yep.
Thank you.
Dominic, I have read the email that you sent me to everybody. You live in Staten Island.
Yes, I do.
You're building an O-gauge layout.
Yes, sir.
3-rail or 2-rail?
3.
3-rail layout.
Yes,
and
sir.
You need help wiring it, and you need help doing some other things to it because of your eyesight.
Yes, sir. I am legally blind. And originally when I was younger, I would work on HO. But as I got older, it became harder and it just was not practical anymore. And even the Lionel, the O gauge, to a certain extent, certain aspects of it are difficult. But I mean, I have a friend that helps me. But most of the work pretty much I do myself. He just plans it. I'm the one that crawls under the table and wires everything and so forth and so on.
And so that really what you need is somebody with eyes to do the work.
Yes, sir. I need a seeing eye friend.
Gotcha. And you're willing to pay for their time and effort to do this?
I don't know because right now it's hard due to my job. They've cut back. So I have to be a little more conservative with my funds. I haven't really bought anything as far as the hobby goes. I'm just working on projects that I've had in place and just working on them, doing the finer details with them as best as I can. And okay. That's where I am. I mean, I've posted a lot of stuff on the various train sites. I'm pretty sure some of you, if not all of you, have seen them at one point or another. Some of you might even be a little overwhelmed with them because I have a tendency to post things on multiple sites. So you might see the same thing at 2-3 different sites possible. But I mean, for the most part, I like the feedback I get. I would say the good majority of it has been very helpful. I've been given some very good insight to it. I've helped with alternative ways on doing different aspects of model railroading. I'm very thankful for that. I mean, I don't know what to say. The majority of people that are out there are extraordinarily nice and very kind. I've been lucky to meet a couple of gentlemen in the hobby. I have one person who I proudly call him as a friend. I've gotten to know him. He lives out in Arizona, my buddy Doug. And he's helped me. And if there's anything I need help with, he's either video chatted with me. If it was something, a structure, something, and I couldn't fix something, I would send it to him. He fixes it for me. I mean, hey, a lot of the guys out there and girls are very nice, and I appreciate all the help.
Well, Dominic, I hope somebody may have the time and interest to give you a contact. And like I say, I don't want you to put your email up, but everybody has my email. So if you'll just send an email to me, then I'll forward it on to Dominic, and hopefully he can get connected. My email again is jimkello@newtracksmodeling.com. newtracksmodeling.com. Dominic, thanks so much for showing up tonight. I appreciate it. And I hope we can get somebody to help you.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's a pleasure. It's really interesting hearing all the stories. And I mean, unfortunately, because of my work schedule, I don't get much of a chance to participate. This week, I just happen to be home today. But again, I thank everybody. Everybody's been very kind. And I really do appreciate the advice and the help that I've gotten from everybody. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Dominic, and join us again whenever you get a chance. All right, now I'm going to try one more time to go to Phil Edholm, who does the NMRA local clubs and divisions segment on our show. Phil, welcome.
Thanks, Jim. This is an exciting little segment we do. We do it every other week. And the intent here is to talk to people about how they're doing things in their local community, how they're driving mentoring, and try to get those things identified that people are doing that are unique and different. So this week, I actually have a very interesting guest. And that guest is actually our friend, Pat. And Pat Rivard got an interesting award from his, I think, region. I'm going to have to ask him first to talk a little bit about that, and then talk about the things he's been actively engaged in and with his division and the NMRA and locally. So, Pat, tell us a little bit about the award that you got recently, and then we can talk a little bit about other areas.
Thanks, Phil and Jim. You can hear me all right? No problem?
Absolutely.
The award is the NMRA's President's Award for Service to the Division. Now, I didn't expect this award, but it was quite a surprise. And I got a letter along with the NMRA from our Gordy Robinson, MMR, president of the association. I was quite flabbergasted and very, very proud to receive this award. And I know that there are a lot of people out there who are a whole lot better than I am to do this and have this award given to them. But anyway, it's an appreciation for unselfish sharing of time and talent and your many contributions to the Niagara Frontier region. Your work has immeasurably helped the NMRA and the hobby grow. We thank you, Gordy Robinson.
Oh, that's super. Congratulations. And obviously a recognition. So just out of curiosity, what's the frontier in Niagara Frontier for? Is that because you're on the frontier of the United States and it's kind of the wild, wild west, or?
Not quite, but anyway, if you go on the NMRA site, you'll get a good idea of what region it is. We border a good part of the area in southwestern Ontario, which is Windsor, on the border of Detroit, Michigan. And we have 8 divisions in our NFR. And it's also noted that there are only 17 divisions in the whole globe. So that's a pretty good chunk of divisions.
Cool. So tell us a little bit about kind of what your division and your role is within the division. So
my role actually is the secretary for our WD division, and it's quite challenging, I must admit, especially if you don't know a lot about computers nowadays. Anyway, the big thing is that we try to keep in touch with our members by having a meeting at least twice every 2 months. Every 2 months we have a meeting, and then we try to record the meeting, and we also invite our members to join us on Zoom, or we sometimes have a get together on a different area of the division. Like we have tailgate get-togethers, especially during the pandemic. That's something we did do, is have a tailgate get-togethers where we brought our models and brought some stuff that we might want to sell, encourage them to come and join us with masks, of course. And then we also had, at the same time, visited some of the areas, sites that pertain to the 1 foot gauge. It was very interesting. And also, our AGM is held every May. That's the annual general meeting where we take it and vote for new members of the board or directors. And it's quite a challenge to keep up with all your members, especially when you're in the 200 range.
Yep, that's good. That's very good. So sounds like you do a lot of kind of different activities, but I think that 6 times a year is really interesting. One of the things when you look at sales and kind of interactions, that 6 to 8 times per year is kind of the necessary number to keep in the front of people's minds. So, I think 4 is maybe not enough. 6, every couple of months is probably a good goal. So what kind of things do you do in the division to actively encourage mentoring?
Sorry, Jen, Phil. The biggest thing that we do is try to have encourage to have appointments with our have like a convention or a show or something of that nature, where we go to it with our modules. We have a module that's been built just for that purpose, to mentor to the kids that come around and want to play on the module. We give them a control, and it's DCC and HO. It can be quite interesting sometimes. That's the best part of it. But it gets that thing in their mind where they remember it when they get older, and they say, you know what, that wasn't so bad. I think I'll get into that hobby, and that's how we get a lot of them started.
Yep. Do you do mentoring? Clinic kind of mentoring or build alongs or those kind of things for members to kind of encourage them? One of the things we find is a lot of the members we're getting now kind of have gotten into the hobby by buying trains and collecting, and have not really built up those modeling skills. And I sometimes feel intimidated. Are there things you do to give them an on-ramp to learn skills, et cetera?
Yes, at a lot of the get-togethers that we do have every 2 months, we will have maybe sometimes a clinic. I held one on the trees, as you see in the background. We had one of those clinics, and a lot of the members found it quite interesting to be able to build their own tree and take it home in such a short period of time in different scales. We also have those that come and show us how to build small kits. We get some from ITLA, which is laser art system that sells a lot of models and kits. We've done that on Zoom a lot. We build them, and then we would show them on our Zoom meetings that we had during the pandemic, because there was no other way for us to get together and teach each other to do stuff. That was a big thing. During our pandemic, we lost members, of course, and I'm sure a lot of divisions did. And a lot of people just gave up. They just said, we'll wait till it's all over, then we'll have our meetings back. But you got to keep going, otherwise you lose your members. It's bad if you don't keep it going.
One of the things we've found in the Coast Division is, even as we've started to get back to physical meetings and trying to get to that point of 7 or 8 meetings per year, same kind of thought process, the folks that attend the virtual meetings sometimes aren't the same people that come to the physical meetings. And there's been a real strong ask to continue virtual meetups for folks, for members, because I think it meets different needs for different groups of members. So that's a great insight.
Yes, it is. One thing that we did do is that we encouraged to have an AP chair. Roger Chrysler, we got him to take over the AP chair for our division and in the NFR. And it was a long time that we had nobody. So it was 3 years. We had nobody who was able to go out and give instruction or judge the models or whatever. And that was one of the things we did do during that time. We have a very active superintendent who managed to find the gentleman. It was very difficult. Nobody wants to volunteer anymore. They find it's a lot of work sometimes, as you well know. But if you don't put something into it, you're not going to get it back out of it. That's for sure.
Yep. So how do you get volunteers involved? How do you find and convince folks that, you know, it is challenging, I think, today?
Yeah. To get a volunteer, it's people you know are in a hobby. Like in our club, we have quite a number of guys that are very good at what they do, but it's trying to get them to volunteer to do something, even being part of your directors in the club. So the best thing to do is encourage them to do it, and then once they start, they find out it isn't as bad as you thought it was. You know, it gets a little easier as you go. And I've been through all the tables of our club, and I didn't really start getting active in the WOD division for at least 8 years ago. That's when I started getting involved. So if you don't try, you're not going to get anything out of it.
So what things do you do for recruiting? You know, that's an area I think, and it's interesting. We're starting to have some conversations in the Pacific Coast region. Generally, we're going to have a board meeting, and one of the areas we're really talking about is, you know, there seems to be anecdotal data that says that there are at least 5 to 10 times as many model railroaders out there as NMRA members. You know, how do you recruit them from an NMRA perspective, and also from a club perspective, since you're kind of doing both? But from an NMRA perspective, are you doing anything to recruit folks locally?
Well, yes, we are. With the help of the NMRA, we offered them choices, better choice membership for the NMRA, which if you're a member of the NMRA, you're a life member of the WOD division, because it's all combined together. It's very, very hard to get somebody interested unless they're willing to try. And it's up to you to, you know, encourage them to try. If they need help, help them. Sometimes that alone will do it. But it is not easy. That's for sure. I know we're all having that problem in anything that we do.
Yep. No, it's a challenge to get people to join up and be part of an organization. So, you know, if someone came and said, you know, tell us the 3 things that you think your division is doing that are, you know, it's doing well, or that are different that other people should think about. What are 3 things that you would say are learnings that your division could give to other divisions?
First of all, you got to have a good membership in the board or directors, because if you don't have an active superintendent, you know, that really pushes, you're not going to get anybody interested, because you just lose interest. We have a very active superintendent, Paul Hurley, in our division, and he's always all day pushing new shows or whatever we're going to be doing. Also starting kits and taking pictures of them and sending them out there, and having, you know, all kinds of activities. He likes to push it by sending out a Zoom blast, an e-blast to all the members, gives them a big e-blast on their internet, or on their emails, and kind of inviting them, you know, making it interesting. And that means a lot. Sometimes you'll get extra members. We didn't really lose too many in all that time. We've only lost a few.
That's interesting. Well, any other kind of final comments, Pat, that you think are interesting in terms of your experiences, and how is it, you know, one of the interesting questions always to ask is, you know, how has membership in the NMRA been good from your perspective as both an individual and a modeler?
Membership in the NMRA has given us a chance to offer to those who want to join by offering them a good price. I think that membership was very expensive for a while, and they kind of give us a discount on it for a while. and it encouraged them to join. And if you don't offer something to them to make them join, it doesn't get anywhere because they'll never find out what it's all about. That's the one big thing. And also making sure you keep in touch with your membership. That is the really big thing. The NMRA tries to strive that keeping in touch with your membership keeps interested by doing all kinds of activities. And, you know, and one other thing I want to bring up is with our AP, Roger started up the AP. We're dividing up in our area only in the WOD division. We're dividing up different districts within a 100-mile radius that are going to have their own judges for the AP award, which kind of cuts down the backlog and you know, gives a person a chance to do it.
Yep.
Because if you got somebody that's taking care of a 900-mile district, there's just no way you're going to get your models out there judged. Even on Zoom. Yeah,
absolutely.
So that's
just
what we've tried to do.
Just aside, I wanted to show this because I think this is important. This is actually from the NMRA site. This is actually the promotions. Those of you not aware of this, you can join the NMRA if you're not a previous member for 9 months for just $20. Now, you don't think you get a physical magazine, you get the digital issues of the magazine. But, you know, I think it's a very interesting thing. We've been talking about, you know, how do you really promote that when you're in a train show, you know, getting people to do, you know, get in. But $20 to join, especially if you have an event coming up that's a really cool event, you can almost convince people it's worth the $20 just to come to the event. So, you know, I think there's an on-ramp thing here we need to be aware of. And as far as I can tell, not a lot of people are aware that this is an option you can use to recruit new members. So excellent point, Patrick, that I think the NMRA is beginning to think about that. I think we've still got to think through kind of some of the messaging, but it's a great point. Well, anyway, Pat, I'd really like to thank you for taking the time and talking to us today. And we will look forward to seeing you in the future and seeing more awards as you take on more responsibility. Thanks. And with that, Jim, back to you.
Well, Phil and Pat, thank you so very much. And Pat, a President's Award is a real honor, and congratulations. I know it's well deserved, and can't thank you enough for the volunteer work that you do for our show. So best of luck in the future getting more of them, and thanks for being here this evening.
Thank you, Jim.
Well, now I want to turn to Greg Cassidy. And Greg is, as you know, is building the firehouse that's a kit from Motrac Models. So Greg, welcome.
Thank you, Jim. Let me pull it on up here. I don't think that Gary realized that we were both going to be talking about diamond shingles tonight, but we are. So we're at week 4 of building our Alton fire station from Motrac Models. And as you've seen before, I'll be building the S-scale model. Mine's going to be a demo model that will be shown. I'm mostly building it the same way the instructions are. Tonight we'll be shingling the roof and painting the base and then installing the roof. And there are the diamond shingles that come with the kit. In addition to 2 sets of shingles, you also get a couple strips for the ridge cap and a couple strips for your starter row. I started off easily by assembling the tower roof. You get this little punch out, which is laser cut. And what you do is turn it over. I cut 4 pieces of masking tape that I then used to put all 4 corners together. These were already hinged, but I wanted to make them strong. And then when I put the 4th piece on, you get yourself a little tower cap. Once it's put together in this shape, it should fit right on top of the tower that we built earlier. After I had it put together, I ran some super glue down all 4 of the seams just to make sure it would hold together. Then I started to turn towards the shingles. The first thing I wanted to do was paint them. Now, I usually will do some type of streaking. Sometimes I do it with a Copic marker. This time I decided to use an airbrush. So I started off with a couple shades of gray. I first put down a light gray base over almost all of it, and then added some darker gray streaks. Then I came back with some tan streaks and some even darker streaks. And once the whole thing is put together, the streaks disappear and you just get a variety in your shingles. So then I started cutting them out. These are the starter strips, and I cut them out with approximately the angle that they were going to be used for on the tower roof. And this is how I apply my starter strips. And this is the same thing you'll do in any shingling, whether you're doing 3-tab or anything. I first put down the starter strips, and I used canopy glue for attaching all of my shingles. And then I cut out the single row of shingles and started to apply them. I cut the end of it so that it was again at the approximate angle of the tower. Then I cut the other end so that it would fit between the 2 edges. Now, when you glue this down, he has lines cut on the roof. Mine didn't exactly line up, but it was close enough that I could use them to follow it. But the important thing is to have the bottom edge of your diamonds right on the very edge of the roof. And I would apply a little bit of the canopy glue on the back. I have one of those bottles that has a metal nozzle on it that makes this easy. And then I just started working my way around the roof. You could also go up, it's your choice. You don't have to be real concerned about the edge here where they meet, because we're going to have a ridge cap come down that. Now, one of the tricks to putting on diamond shingles is to get all of your little points lined up, as Gary was mentioning. And it's easy enough when you start doing it. I actually find these easier than some 3-tab shingles or some others where you're trying to find a cut, follow a cut line. But it's important that you try and get as exact in lining them up, because if you get some that are off, once the whole roof is done, they'll kind of stand out. Now, once you have it all shingled, before you cut out your ridge cap, I went down the back, the middle of it with the back of my X-Acto blade, and that scores it. And I did it before I cut it out so that it wouldn't squirm on me while I was doing it. And then once I had it scored, you can fold along that score. And to put on the ridge cap, you need to have a 90-degree angle right here. And I just use my flat square for doing that. So you have 2 45-degree angles, and you want to make sure that they line up. And then again, I just use the canopy glue, and you glue those down, making sure that your 4 corners are going to meet up at the top. And that's easy enough if you let it overhang. You can cut that off afterwards. So this is where you line up your 4 points or your 4 corners. And of course, if you want to do anything extra, like put some type of pin there or something for a lightning rod or an antenna or something, you can do that. Now, once you have your roof done, you're going to glue it on top of the tower. And I used my tacky glue for that. I just put a bead all the way around on 4 sides, and then that holds it down. Now, set that aside to dry, and I test fit the roof onto my building. I wanted to just make sure it fit okay, and I'm glad I did that before I put the shingles on it. One thing I ran into on the S-scale kit, and I can't say whether it's going to be the same on any of the other 3 scales that they're available in, but the tabs that stuck up from the end walls were too tall, and they came through the roofing material. And if I had shingled over that, it wouldn't work. So it's easy enough to fix. I just marked a line at the top of the roof. And then since the walls were glued together, I laid it down, put a little piece of wood underneath it, and just sliced it off. It wasn't a problem, but I'm glad I found it before I was shingling the roofs. That would have made it a little more difficult. And now the tab sits flush with the roof. So we're going to start working on the main roof now. The first thing I did was paint the underside of the roof just a gray, which generally matched the gray of the building. And I first glued down my starter strip like I did with the tower roof. And then I started gluing down the shingles, again, lining up the points. Now, when you start cutting your shingles out of the sheet, you'll notice that the way they're laser cut, every other one is upside down. And as you cut them out, these are the two ends you're left with. And when you're putting them on the roof, you want to alternate these two ends. And you'll see here what I mean. You'll have one end and then the other type of end. And if you start at one end with the diamond points lining up, they line up at the other side too. I'm sure Jeff must have done this on purpose. I couldn't have been this lucky. So you just continue laying down a bead of glue and then the next row of shingles and a bead of glue and the next row of shingles, alternating your ends. And that way you don't have any that are hanging off either too far and they end up too short on the other end. Now, once you start working your way up here to these openings, you're going to shingle over the tab slots. And this is our opening for the tower. And this is the last row that will glue all the way across. Now for this next row, you're going to lay down a bead of glue and these shingles are going to straddle the opening. But you have to do this little extra step. I put a spot of glue on the bottom of all the shingles that we're going to lay down right here. And that's because these shingles need to stay in place once you cut out the opening for the tower after you're done. This is where the tower opening is going to be cut out. And these shingles need to stay here. And if you didn't glue them down, they're just going to fall away when you cut this out. This is what it looks like from the back. So once you've done that, you continue gluing them the rest of the way up. The rest of these shingles, you don't need to put any glue on the backs of them. They're just going to be cut out. So once I had shingled all the way up to the top, this is where you cut out for the opening for the tower and save all these. You'll see why later. And this is why we put glue underneath those shingles, was so they wouldn't fall out or just be held by a tiny little strip here and be loose. Now, once you've got your roof shingled all the way up to the top, you want to cut off the ends. And I use a scalpel for it. It makes a nice clean cut. And you can see how it comes right down the edge here. And by starting on the point of the diamond, they all line up. And this is when I had both of the roofs shingled and the openings cut out. And it doesn't pick up as much in the photo, but the variation in the shingles from the earlier painting really shows up. And you want to remember to cut out the hole for your chimney, but don't accidentally cut out the hole for your tabs. While I was letting all that dry, I moved on to the base. Now, the base of this kit, you can see the slots. That's where the walls are going to sit. So I used 2 shades of gray, and I just kind of alternated them and moved them back and forth as I was painting it. It's not how I would do concrete if it was going to be really seen, but on mine, only the very edge of this is going to be seen once it's done. Now, if your doors are going to be open or you're going to do an interior for it or something, you might want to spend a little more time with your concrete. Now, going back to the roof, Once they've all dried, you're going to get ready to install your roof. Now, since mine was going to be a demo model, I did a couple extra strengthening things that you won't need to do if you're building it just to put on a layout. But this is going to be handled a lot. So underneath the piece of roofing, I glued a brace down just to make it stronger. And then when I was test fitting the roof on here, I noticed that I wanted it to have a really strong attachment along the edge here and not just on the two end walls. And even though we had raised this wall a little bit, I wanted a glue block along this bottom as well that the roof would be glued to. So if somebody was handling it at a show, it wouldn't come loose. So I just took some long strip wood, I cut it and then sanded it down so it fit right inside my two end walls. And I glued it in place like this, just at the right angle so I could glue the wall to it. And what you see here is me gluing the first roof in place. I put glue along the glue block on the other side, plus on both ends. And then I put the roof flat on the mat and used these weights to hold this glue block down in place while the glue was drying. And then this is doing the same thing on the second side, except I had to do it from the inside. But these are holding the building flat and against the roof that's on the mat there. So I let this dry in both sides and I got a really strong joint. So at this point, the roof's glued on. As I said, you don't necessarily have to go through these steps. I did it because this is going to be handled a lot. If it was just going to be sitting on a layout, I might have braced the roof, but I wouldn't have gone through these extra steps of the glue blocks. I also took a little leftover strip wood, I think it was 1/4 inch, and just glued inside the two openings or the two places where the roof peak is here, again, just to make it stronger. Now we're getting ready to put our ridge cap on now, and that's going to go along the ridge here. And this is the piece that's left. So we're going to cut it out. I roughly cut it into two pieces that were a little longer than I needed on both of these. Doing the same thing we did for the tower roof, I scribed right down the middle of it and then folded it in half. I like to fold it over a razor blade. It gives you a nice sharp edge. But when you go to put it on, you can see that our shingles don't come up quite high enough. And I thought this might be the case when I was actually shingling the roof, but I couldn't tell at the time. That's why I saved all of these little pieces, because what you need to do, and you can do this while the roof's still flat and you're shingling it, you need to take these and cut most of the upper part off. So all you're left with are the little shingles and a very thin strip, and then put a little dab of glue on the back of each one of them. And then you're going to glue those down, again, lining up the points so that they go all the way across. And you can see how if I had left that on, it would actually stick up too high. So that's why we have to cut most of the back of the shingle off. And once we've done that, now our ridge cap comes down and the shingles are underneath it. And if it were to rain, everything would be protected. So again, just as we did with the ridge caps on the tower, I put glue down it, and then I use one of these little micro brush applicators to spread the glue out and glue it in place on the roof. And you can cut it to length before you put it on, or wait until it's in place and then cut it to length. Now, the last thing we have to do is glue the tower in place. And for doing this, I put glue on the inside of the opening on both sides. But if you push the tower down, you want it to be as tight as possible here. The thing to remember, the inner walls of this tower go through the hole, and that's what the glue is adhering to. This outer wall has the V cut in it, but we want this to be a really tight joint once we have the shingles on the roof. Now, you can't put a weight on top of the tower while it's drying because it's pointed at the top. So what I did, I inverted it. The point of the tower is resting on the mat, and I have the weight of the building resting on the tower, and these two blocks are just supporting it so it doesn't tip over either way. And that way it's pushing down on the tower as the glue is drying, and it ended up being a really tight joint there between the wall and the shingles. So that's it for putting the roof on. We're just about done with this. Next week, we'll go over the last details of putting on the porch roof, mounting the front doors, painting and putting on the chimney, and mounting it on the base, and then doing the weathering. So Jim, back to you.
Anybody have any questions for Greg on building the firehouse? Well, I guess not, Greg. You must be doing a fantastic job, as you always do. So thank you so much for doing this for us. I really do appreciate it.
I'm happy to do it. Thank you.
Are you happy with the model? I mean, is it what you expected?
It very much is. It was a little unusual because I'm building it to be a display model at shows. So I had to really constrain myself to doing any modifications that I do with almost everything I build. But I had to use everything that came in the kit and then build it so it pretty much looked like the picture on the box. But I'm very happy with the way it came out, and I think it's a great model. And, you know, if you need a firehouse, I'd recommend it.
Gotcha. Thanks so much, Chris. Appreciate it. Well, now I want to turn to Martin Brickfield, MMR, who is also going to be building something for us, except he is scratch building it. So Martin, welcome.
Thanks, Jim. It's just going to be a little different and very.
By the way, before you get started, while you're getting set up, I'm looking for a company that Martin recommended to me. The name of the company is ON30 IMA. And the person that owns it is Dave Mason. And I need a telephone number for Dave. I went to his website and sent him an email based on the email address on his website, but I haven't been able to make contact with him. And he's really got some beautiful models, I think, and we'd like to see if he'd be interested in doing a build along on our show. But I need a telephone number to try to reach him. So if anybody can help me with that, my email is jimkello@newtracksmodeling.com. Excuse me, go ahead, Martin.
Oh, it's okay. I got a nap in. So this is an exercise in seat of the pants scratch building, which is a spur of the moment, unplanned excursion of and collection of leftovers and scattered things in the scrap boxes all around the shop. Things you can do. So this is the floor. As you can tell, this is the part of this piece was left over from something. I have no idea what. It looks like it was about 1/8 of an inch by 2 inches. According to whoever scribbled on it, that's not my scribble. That's not wide enough. So I actually widened it a little bit, glue some other basswood on the sides, some pieces on the end to cover up the end grain. And that's the core of the floor for this car. It's not a very big car. You'll see why. And we're going to fast forward a little bit. Decided I was going to put a tank on this car just for fun. That's 10 thousandths brass wrapped around a wooden form. And the wooden form is made from 1/4 inch quarter round or 3/8 inch quarter round. I'm not sure which it was. Doesn't really matter. You could do this with whatever size or scale you want to do it in. And just build up a solid block with other scrap basswood, glue it all up, and then just wrap some brass around it. And then get out your torch and solder it all together and just cap off the top and bottom with some more 10,000 brass, solder it all up. You've got a tank. Well, and some rivet strips, some old Walthers rivet strips. They're the copper ones. So this is ancient history, but you know, I would recommend using the decal rivets, but Archer apparently is going to be out of business in about 2 days. So I guess you're going to have to go to Micromark or somebody else who's going to pick up that business. I don't know who. You got a fill dome, which is left over from other projects, but that's just a piece of plumbing. You go down the plumbing aisle at the Home Depot, you get that, and a resin hatch out of the resin casting box of trays of parts in my shop, and now we have a tank. Just that simple. You know, and I left the wood form inside. I didn't bother to slide it out. I figured, what the heck? It's going to add weight to the car, which it probably will need anyhow, since it's going to be a small car. It doesn't do any harm to leave it in there. It's only a moderate fire hazard while you're soldering it up anyhow, so it's not a big problem. And that's what it looks like from the other side. So, yeah, the rivet strips need to be pushed around a little bit, but they're copper. They pop down nice and tight after a while. You got to go walk around it a few times and poke at it with a sharp end of a file, and like these little pieces over where it's popped up a little bit. It's being copper, it'll conform to the shape pretty easily. A little bit of CA underneath of it, and it doesn't come back up. Well, we need some brackets to hold the tank in place. So I don't know what size strip wood this is. It's whatever I had in the scrap box. It looks like it's actually the leftovers from when I build other maintenance away cars, and that's just the it's probably HO 12 by 20 or something like that. But I thought I'd get fun with it and exercise the razor saw and the scalpel and mortise this all together. And this isn't hard to do. You can mortise things together. It looks good when you get done. I mean, it looks fairly sharp. You get little pieces, you put them together, and it all snaps together. If you measure it carefully, it all goes together. And there's only a modest chance of bloodletting with the razor saw and scalpel. So no worries there. And it all snaps together. And then I put a little bit of goo and CA on the joints because it's end grain, and then you add a bunch of NBW castings from T-sheet. I don't remember what number they are, but they're the fairly large O scale with the square washers. It's got to be held together by something other than glue. You need some on the bottom to hold it down onto the car body, and you need to drill some holes for connecting rods. And the trick to this is, of course, you stack one on top of the other and drill all 4 holes, holding it all in place so everything stays in alignment. Otherwise, you're guessing, and your connecting rods come out crooked. And unless you want your connecting rods to come out crooked, you can make them straight. You can freehand it if you want. For some reason, I didn't. I don't know why. Normally, I would. Okay, pre-paint everything and put it all together. It's a good practice no matter what you're building. And you end up with this. So I added some deck boards along the way. Added some sideboards to cover up the ugly pieces, end grain. Added some stake pockets. They're Grant Line. I have no idea whose grab irons those are. They're preformed wire. These are not precision scale. They were something I picked up at one of the O-Scale Nationals when someone was selling bags of 5 sprues for $1, 4 stirrups, brass stirrup steps on a sprue. And I said, thank you, I will take all that you have. And I've since run out of them, much to my sadness. Here's your connecting rod, ties it all together, this tie rod. That's 46,000 steel. I just happened to have it. It was in the scrap wire box, and it got rid of the 46,000 steel rod that I don't need. So now it's gone away. That's a precision scale brake wheel and a plastic ratchet and pawl casting. So those I'll splurge on because I think they make things look a lot sharper. And that's just what it looks like from the other side. If you had any doubts, it looks the same on this side, except it's rotated 180 degrees. So you get a coat of flat black from the rattle can. That's a rough first coat. I came back and repainted parts in here with all kinds of polyscale engine black. Everything else got primer red. Again, a rough first coat. We're not trying to be perfect with this car. And we had to put a little drain valve over here. So brass tubing with a valve handle, just soldered up from brass scrap. It's a piece of, I don't remember what size tubing. Whatever the next size K&S tubing is, up from 3/64 tubing. I don't know. I guess that's maybe an 1/8. But not too hard to drill a hole in the top and drop a piece of brass wire and make a handle out of a little piece of 42 thousandths by 15 thousandths brass. Just solder that all together, drill a hole in the end, pop it in. We have a valve. Okay, what's this car going to go on? Well, here's something familiar. What was it, about 3-4 months ago? I made that bobber caboose, and I made the 4-wheel truck out of a 6-wheel passenger car truck. Well, 6-wheel passenger car trucks, strangely enough, travel in pairs. They mate for life or something. But I had a leftover. So I had a leftover one. Well, you slice, dice, mill, grind, and reassemble. And now we have a long wheelbase 4-wheel truck, the second one. And rather than have it being left over and sitting in my parts bins, it's going on this car. And that just mounts to the car underbody, some glue and some CA, and it's done. It just glues right on place. I threw a K-brake casting in just to make it less naked and added a piece of, I guess it's Northeastern scale lumber underbody center sill. I hope you can still buy that. You could just make that if you wanted to. It's not hard. Just a bunch of strip wood that you glue up. And some air hoses. I just tacked those on the ends. It didn't run a lot of plumbing underneath here. So add a few odds and ends, some more paint, some spillage and rust and what have you. Add a barrel and a box for tools. We have a ladder tucked in behind the barrels. It's a Plastruck ladder and ABS. I don't know why I have those. It's a really annoying material unless you have a lot of MEK or contact cement glue. But it works well enough. And last but not least, cover up those end brackets with some more NBWs. Can't have this naked holes with just steel rods sticking out of it. Need something to cap that off with. So there's our car. We add another barrel at the other end, another ladder. You might want to get up on it the other side, who knows. And yeah, that's it. Quick and easy. Leftovers, made good, not wasted. And we have another unique little car you can run around the track or not and have fun with. So there we go. The end. Any questions, comments?
That's a cute car. It really is.
Yeah, I thought it was something fun to do.
Yeah, something different, you know?
Well, like I said, it gets rid of a lot of leftovers. A lot of the stuff I've been building for the last 2-3 years, I'm always looking for, scrounging through my own leftovers boxes. I keep everything and throw them in various boxes. It's a lot easier to find parts there than to go buy them.
Yeah, but it's awfully nice every once in a while, I think, and I think you would agree, just to build something, just for the heck of it. And that's what I think this car is, and more power to you, Martin. It's a beautiful job.
Thank you,
Martin. What? Yeah. What were those glad hands or the couplers made out of?
The air hoses?
Yeah, the air hose coupler.
Oh, sorry, those are precision scale.
They are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of those things I splurge on.
You can use them
Yeah.
on all the cars.
Well, you know, they look nice. They add that little extra at the end of the car, and I think they're a worthwhile investment. Used to be you could buy an entire sprue for a reasonable price, but those days are long gone.
Yes. Thanks, Martin.
Yep.
Martin, I really appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
No problem.
And listen, if anybody else would like to do the kind of thing that Martin did tonight, I mean, it doesn't have to be building a car, it can be building anything. But if you're building something kind of different and unusual or something, you know, let me know about it. You know, I like those kind of models. I think they're stimulus for a lot of us to try something that we may not have tried before. So I really do appreciate, Martin, you doing it, doing this one particularly, because I do think that this is a lot of fun. Every once in a while, just building something for the heck of it, I think is great. Well, now I've got something that I want to talk to you about that I've never mentioned on this show before. I need to go into a little history first to tell you how New Tracks started, so you'll get a feel for why I'm asking this. About 2.5 years ago, I was invited, I think by Chris Lane, who is a editor and publisher for White River. He does the OM 30 and HO annuals and those kind of publications. He had a Zoom meeting and he invited me. And that's first Zoom meeting I ever went to. And I thought, geez, this looked like fun. And I met some people and could talk to them. And you know, that I enjoyed that. Well, I had people who had been readers of my articles, because I'd been writing the articles at that point for around 3.5 years. And I'd had people say, you know, with this pandemic, you know, we'd like to meet personally if we could, some of the people you're writing about. Why don't you do it digitally if you can figure a way to do it? And after that Zoom meeting, I thought, well, maybe Zoom is the answer. But as all of you well know, my technical ability is next to zero. So I had to have somebody help me to run the show. And I called Kevin McCumber, and I told Kevin what I wanted to try to start and asked him if he knew somebody that might help me. And he got me to Dylan Lambert. And Dylan agreed to be the technical expert behind our effort. And that's how Dylan and I started New Tracks on Zoom. Well, at first, we thought that we could only do it for 40 minutes because we didn't pay anything. It was all free at that point, or we used the free Zoom at that point. But it was at the very start of the pandemic scare. And we would run in an hour, hour and a half. And Zoom never said anything to us, and we just kept going, no big deal. So we thought, well, as long as they'll allow us to do this, there's no point in paying anything for it. So we just used the free Zoom, and it wasn't costing anybody anything except our time and effort trying to put the shows together and run the shows and try to see if anybody was going to watch us or not. So that's how we started. Well, then Zoom decided, nope, you're going to have to pay us. So I wrote the check for Zoom. And then we decided, we had some other volunteers start helping us, and somebody said, well, we got to have a website. And I said, okay, how do we do a website and where do we get one? And they said, well, you need this and that and so forth. So I said, okay, and I paid for the website. So now we had Zoom that we could run as often as we wanted, as long as we wanted. And we had a website. And now all we needed was volunteers to help people both run the show for us and to do the website and to try to help us market the shows. So in order to try to raise some money so that me or nobody else was having to pay out of their pocket all the time to pay for the show, as well as finding the people to be on it, trying to get everything working right and finding volunteers to help run the shows, I started looking for a funding source. And the idea I came up with was digital train shows. And so I talked to Dylan about it, and he agreed to do it with me. And so we had a digital train show. We limited it to 20 people, 20 small manufacturers. And I asked some of the people on the show to recommend the manufacturers they'd like to see in it. I had a list of manufacturers that I had been writing about in the past, and that's who I called. And I called all 20 of them. And I said, you get 5 minutes on our train show for $10. And so I had the 20 people sign up for our train show. And that was our first source of revenue, that train show. So then when the bills came around again, we could use that revenue to pay some of the bills. Well, the first train show went well. I forget now how many people viewed it. I think 400 was the total. I could be wrong. So we said, well, let's do another one. So we did another train show. And to make sure that that one went off well, I offered everybody that had been in the first train show the second train show for free. Because I was doing them now about 2 months, and I wasn't trying to gouge anybody, and I didn't want to keep charging money if we didn't have to. So they signed up again for that, because now it was 2 train shows and each one of them cost them $5 for their 5 minutes on the show. And the train shows were running 3 hours, 3.5 hours. And Dylan was getting tired, and frankly, I was getting tired. And so we said, well, let's do another one. So we did another one, and we charged again $10 for the third one. And we filled up the third one. And we got some volunteers. And Greg Cassidy was one of the volunteers that helped us on those shows. And Greg can vouch. He spent untold hours contacting the manufacturers to make sure that we got their money, to make sure that they were ready for the shows, to make sure that everything was ready to go when we did the shows. Because again, we were running a show that was taking 3.5 hours to run it with 20 vendors at 5 minutes apiece. And we banked that money. And the money that we made from those shows, in effect, then started to help us to cover the cost of the costs, the out-of-pocket costs that we had. Everybody else was volunteer, donating their time. Well, we tried to do a 4th train show. I raised the fee at that one to $25 a vendor, because at that point we had proved that the digital train show was a success. I think at our 3rd train show we had over 1,500, if I remember right, viewers of this train show, and we were getting comments back that they enjoyed the train shows because they were seeing vendors they'd never seen before. They didn't even know these small manufacturers were even out there. So we were giving an audience to the small manufacturer that was way outside the normal distance that they were traveling to go to a local train show. Everybody seemed to be happy about it. So the 4th train show I filled up. And I figured, well, that amount of money will be enough to carry us for a while. And I don't need to worry about the train shows for a while. Then we can break and continue them later. I couldn't find enough volunteers to do the 4th train show. And to make sure that the train shows continue to come off the way that we wanted them to. And to make sure that the manufacturers felt that it was worth their time and effort to participate. So even though we had the money in the bank for the 4th train show, I didn't feel comfortable to produce it because of the lack of help that we could get. So I canceled the train show and refunded everybody their money. And that was the end of the train shows for me at that point, because I just didn't feel comfortable asking the manufacturers that had supported us in the past to send in money and want to do it if I wasn't comfortable that we had enough volunteer help to make it possible. So we kept spending that money that we had made from the train shows as part of the way to cover the cost for the shows. Well, in July of this year, we had another opportunity for fundraising. And that's when we got at least 1,000 subscribers to our YouTube account. And YouTube allowed us to monetize. Now, I'm sure that you have seen on our videos that YouTube now we allow YouTube to place advertisement at the first of the shows and other places in the videos that we produce, because YouTube pays us a small amount of money for each person who views one of those advertisements. About 3 weeks ago, I guess now, I got an email from YouTube that said, well, you can also monetize your website and allow us to put advertising on your website. So I said, okay, that's another revenue source. We'll do that. So now every time anybody goes to our website and views one of the advertisements that YouTube has placed there, then we earn a little bit of money from that viewers view of that advertisement, whether it's on our website or it's on our YouTube. We also get benefits if whoever comes to our site hits the like button, what they read or saw, or if it's a video that they like the video, because from what YouTube has told us, the more likes that we get from the viewers, the more advertisers want to advertise with us. Therefore, the more money we can raise from the advertisers. So what I'm asking is, we need a source of revenue. We need a source of revenue to make the show, in effect, self-supporting, and not just self-supporting for me, but hopefully self-supporting for a long time. Whether it's me or whoever might replace me in the future, as long as the show is self-supporting, and as long as you're interested in seeing it, then I hope it can continue. And I'm trying to establish a revenue source that is not expensive for anybody in order to establish that. So what I'm asking you is, when you go to our website, and I hope you go every day, please look at the videos of the advertising. Click on those, because that means we earn a little money. You may take 2 minutes or more of your time to do it, but we're not asking you to take money out of your pocket. Just spend that little bit more time when you're looking at our website or looking at our YouTube video to try to earn us a little money, so that we have a self-sufficient revenue flow to fund the basic cost of our shows. Now, in addition to that, we have other things that we want to do, but I promised somebody that I wouldn't talk about those until next week. So that's a surprise that I'll hold till next week. But I didn't want to hold this anymore because we need to establish that revenue source. And that revenue source is viewers who like the concept of our shows, who go to our website for information, who look at the videos for information. Please click on the advertisement that's on our video so that we can have a self-sufficient source of revenue. So that's my plea for you. And I hope that everybody that hears this and views this, I hope that you can see your way clear to help us out. Now, I've got two very short videos that I want to play for you that we call the caboose of the show, the end of the show. So one of them is from a gentleman in Hanoi, Vietnam, that sent me a follow. He follows me on my Jim Kello MMR Facebook page. And I found him through that. And he makes his model trains out of Fanta soda cans and uses caps, bottle caps for the wheels. And I want to show you one of the videos that I pulled from him. Folks, I guess that is his way of dead rail. Martin, that is Scratchbuilding. His name is, and I know I'm going to butcher his name, but best I can pronounce it is it's Hong Duc Tang, and he's from Hanoi. If I can get him to respond to me and find out how to talk to him, I'm going to ask him to be on our show, because I think it's a real modeling masterpiece of what he's doing with Tang soda pop cans and bottle caps and the electronics that he uses and so forth, and how he keeps the trains running for as long as he does. If you noticed, he's built both a freight and a passenger train that we dubbed together to show you what he has built. So the next one I want to show, I got this from Dennis Jelma. This is the Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Club's layout in Jacksonville, Florida.
Hello, Jim Kello. This is Denny Yelsmer with the Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum Club layout, and we're going to give you a 2-minute tour of this fabulous layout that is located in Jacksonville, Florida. This is a quick tour of the Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum's layout tour. Hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I really do appreciate you sending that to me. Thank you so very much. I hope you've enjoyed seeing those two videos. They're a little bit different, but it's kind of what we call the caboose part of the show. And that's it for this evening. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Most importantly, I hope you've learned something. I do hope that you'll go to our website. I do hope that you'll look at the advertising. I do hope that you'll subscribe so that you'll get the login links for our future Zoom shows. I do hope that you'll go to our YouTube channel and watch our videos, and particularly watch the commercials connected to them, so that you'll be able to see all of the shows that we produce that aren't available on Zoom, such as our lifestyle shows. And I hope that you'll subscribe to our YouTube channel and also ring the bell to get that notification. So again, thank you so much for being here this evening. Look forward to seeing you next Wednesday night. And thank you so very much.